But he studied human behavior, very surface level in many ways, but somebody created Maslow's hierarchy of needs from his content. And everybody believes that Maslow created that, but Maslow never created a hierarchy of needs. And Maslow didn't end at self-actualization, which is where the hierarchy ends. He started looking at self-transcendence. So if you look at his, I'll call it a continuum, let's call it a ladder, that's what I'm calling it, this new book, is at the bottom of the ladder is survival, food, water, shelter, and safety. Those are the lower two in his hierarchy of needs. The next level is love and belonging, and then self-esteem, and then self-actualization. If we look at self-transcendence, that's the last one. So if you look at this continuum, at the bottom of this ladder is abject poverty and no survival, being eaten by an animal. And the top of his ladder is transcendence, which is oneness with God. And we all live somewhere on this ladder. We all live between total ready to die from survival issues to oneness with God. And our project on this planet, in my opinion, this book will be written as a fable of a father telling a story to his daughter, answering the question, why are we here? And I think we're here to wake up, to figure out where we are on this continuum, this ladder, to know that no rung is better than any other. And when we figure out where we are on this ladder, we're here to reach down to the people below us and help them up the ladder, and to reach up to the people above us and say, what do you see that I don't see? So if I can just be humble enough to say, I was blessed. I mean, I'm looking at you. One of my best friends is a man of color. And he says, Larry, you have no idea what it's like to be a man of color. You walk down the street and people look at you differently than they look at me. And that's true. And he says, you come from privilege. I'm like, yes, I do. And my daughter tells me all the time. But I can't do anything about the fact that I was born a white male in 1963 in New York. And I've had every opportunity in my life to have a beautiful life that I have. I was not put on this planet to be in abject poverty. For whatever reason, I don't ask. I don't worry about it. My opportunity is to wake up and to help those that are asking for help to move up this ladder. That's my opportunity. That's why I coach. My brother asked me why I write books. And I write books to turn a rung on the ladder into a platform. So that if I keep climbing and I fall, at least I can fall onto a platform versus grasping for a rung. And that's my reason. I don't write them for anybody else. If I sell 1,000 books or I sell 1,000,000 books, I don't care. I'm not here to sell thousands of books. I'm here to express my belief system and know that that belief system is just that. It's just a belief system, and it's not true, and it doesn't matter. But if it helps me find peace, and I can help other people find peace, which is why I think we're here. We're here to figure out where we are on the ladder and find peace with our situation in life. And that's it. All this accumulation, all the chasing. Now, I need an identity and ego to pay my bills, to collect income, to know my value in society, all that other stuff. And none of it matters.
Okay. You're listening to Unfiltered Conversations. Today's guest is Larry, an entrepreneur and community builder who spent decades around high performers and noticed a pattern. A lot of people can win on paper and still feel empty inside. His newest book, The Joy Molecule, grew out of a life-changing 2012 trip to rural Uganda. And it was built around like 3 questions. So what you are, who you are, and why you're here. This is one of the most pivotal, not journeys, but questions that you can ask yourself. And it's not hype, it's about alignment. Larry, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here and excited to have a conversation.
Yes, sir. Let's get right into it. You
Let's get
opened
into
the
it.
Joy Molecule with the line, my life has been beautiful if I only would have experienced it that way. What was happening in your life when you realized that truth?
Wow. I've gone through a lot of experiences in life that were, I mean, if you think about it, Michael, my parents, your parents, something happened, a sperm made it into an egg and
Yeah.
reproduced a couple billion times inside of somebody's stomach. over 40 weeks, and out pops this creature with 10 fingers and 10 toes and a mind and a body and organs. I don't even know what they all do.
Yeah.
And that's a miracle. For most of my life, I was just a prisoner of my own mind. And I believed that my thoughts were who I was. And I believed that every thought that came into my head needed action to be taken against it. And I would call that my identity or my ego, whichever you want to use, whatever word you want to use. And when I realized that I'm more than that, is when I realized that my life was beautiful. And it's not an easy concept for most people to handle because there's no way that thought can allow you to understand what I just shared. Because where I come from today, the place where I live from is beyond thought. Now, I'm a being that has thoughts, and I have meditated for close to 13 years now, and I can observe my thoughts. And for most of my life, I reacted to all my thoughts.
Mm.
And when I realized that my thoughts were just input, that I have the ability to decide whether I want to listen to them or not, whether I want to say so, all the negative self talk that I had for the majority of my life, I would say 90% of it is gone because I keep telling my mind, no, that's not valuable anymore. I don't need that anymore. And I've been playing around with this analogy, and maybe this will help. When you're born, you're like this pure, beautiful being, right? So you're just sitting there, the world is all possibility. And then your parents get their hands on you and they try and get you to do what they need you to do in order for you to stop crying, for you to be happy, for you to smile and be present and make no noise, whatever that looked like for them. Some people love their kids and want them to be rambunctious. Other people want them to be good little dutiful babies that don't do anything, and you got everything in between. But the truth is, your true self was that moment when you were born, when everything was possible and
Mhm.
nothing had a label, nothing. There was no meaning to anything. To me, that's my true self. So my true self is 100% love, which is what a baby is, 100% abundant because I'm just seeing all the possibility, 100% grateful. So gratitude is part of my natural being, 100% present because I got nothing other than what's around me right now, and 100% neutral. Nothing has meaning because I have no definitions for anything. So that's my true self. And everything else that I deal with is my mind creating identities for me and belief systems for me that are true for me, but I wouldn't call them truth. Because most of the stuff I've believed over my life has changed. Like I would have a belief system, and then 10 years later, I look back and I'm like, that was pretty silly. So if that's silly 10 years from now, from when I had it, what's going to look silly 10 years from now? And I have no idea. So I try and loosely attach myself to some beliefs and ideas, but at the end of the day, the world is unfolding perfectly. So
Mm.
you got this baby, they come out beautiful. Your parents get a hold on you, and yourself, your true self, goes in the passenger seat. And then you start to go to school, and your friends get a hold of you, and your teachers get a hold of you, and then you start watching TV shows, and Madison Avenue and Hollywood start getting a hold of you. And then you start to go in the back seat.
Mm.
And this identity you're creating from birth, which is not truly you, but it's who you think you are. So you were given the label of Michael Yearby, but you're not Michael Yearby. You're the being known as Michael Yearby that has a mind that's been trained to be who you think you are.
Mhm.
And by the time you get out of high school and through college, you are firmly identity driving the car. And your true self, that baby that came out pure and beautiful, is in the trunk in a little box. And he's back there, or she is back there, and you have no idea what the hell's going on. So there's a point in life where a decision happens. Do I want to explore what's in the trunk? And is that true self ever going to wake up? Or am I going to live out the story that I was taught? So I got to the point where I wanted that true self to show up. And the question becomes, where does that true self belong? And I believe that true self belongs back in the driver's seat. I think that we have multiple forms of our identity and our ego. So we have an inner child, we have a conscious self, and we have a highest self. And to me, my highest self is my natural being. So I want to put that natural self, highest self in the driver's seat. And the best place to be in a car, if you really want to see the world, is in the passenger seat, because the driver's got to focus on other stuff coming.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
if you're the passenger, you get the best view. So I end up realizing that I need to stay, at least my conscious self, my age appropriate behavior gets to sit in the passenger seat. Now, my inner child, my wounds, my own drama, my own stuff has multiple parts. Maybe there's a half a dozen inner child. You got your happy inner child, you got your sad inner child, you got your angry inner child, you got your needy inner child. And we got to thank them, love them, appreciate them for all the things they did for us to keep us safe and comfortable as children.
Hmm.
But now they're not needed anymore. We need to take them, and maybe the happy inner child gets to sit in the back seat, because you want a happy inner child. You want to be playful. You want to love life. But that angry inner child, he needs to go away.
Yeah.
He's done his work. And in many ways, he ran my life. That angry inner child, that reactive behavior, that thing that just, whenever something happens, I'm reacting, and not in a positive way, and unconsciously just reacting, then I'm not my best self. So I need that inner child, that angry inner child, that hurt inner child to get healed and go in a little box and go in the trunk where my true self was. And my true self needs to go now in the driver's seat. And that's the work that we do when you decide that as a society, you said you grew up in Miami. I grew up in New York. I live in San Diego. As a society, most of us, Michael Singer says it, so does Eckhart Tolle and everybody else, we are trying to make the world around us look the way we want it so we can be happy. And the truth is, the world is going to be the way the world is. And until we stop looking outside to make it
That's
fit
true.
the way we need it to be, we need to start looking inside to say, why is the way that the world's unfolding right now not okay for me?
Hmm.
That's the decision. That's the moment when I started to realize that my life was beautiful, when I stopped looking outside to solve all my problems, and I started to figure out why it's an inside job and how to work on that person.
You know, it's amazing that you use the analogy of a car where I guess your true self is locked away, right? And now you want your true self to be experiencing in the passenger seat. And then of course there's a driver, but then you're seeing the outlook of the world. So do you think the beauty is more in the experiences that you are gifted in life, no matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but how you, I guess, progress through those? And why is that so important in a life where we're kind of told to be successful, you need to put in this amount of hours and time, and you have to do this, that, and the
Well,
third. The
let's
list can
define
go on, right?
success, first of all. Is success is getting the most financial return for your investment.
Mm,
Maybe more time will do that. But if success is defined as being of service to the rest of the world, being your highest self. So Kobe was interviewed well before he died. I saw it on YouTube recently. And he was talking about failure. And he says, what failure? There is no failure. You
mm,
said good or bad, better or worse. There is no good or bad. There is no better or worse. There's only the experience. And some experiences have more energy than others. Some are heavier than others. So the analogy I use the most is the idea of the sky, the clouds, and the weather. So my true self, the being that's watching my thoughts, is the sky. And the thoughts are the clouds. And my feelings are the weather. And those clouds sometimes are dark and slow. And sometimes those clouds are light and fluffy and just fly through the sky. And those are our thoughts. But when we think we're the clouds, there's no peace. We're blown around by whatever's going through our mind. And the opportunity is to realize that we're more than that. And the challenge that we face with the question you just asked is that we define success as achievement. And when I work with clients, there's about 30 or 40 words I ask people to define. And I was working with a client recently and I gave him 5 words. And one of the words was identity and the other was self. And he said, I define them as the same. And I'm like, that's a problem. Because to me, myself is my true self, is my one that is beautiful, abundant, love, gratitude, neutral, and present. And my identity is the thing I've created in my mind that allows me to live in society so that people can see me the way they need to see me. I can't have this conversation with everyone, but when I'm on podcasts, I don't know if I'm here to shake people up or I'm here to let people see something that they might not see in themselves. But when I speak to audiences, which is what I love to do, my opportunity is to just poke holes in people's belief system. So I'll ask you, where did your belief system come from and why do you believe it?
Are you talking about when it comes to my religious aspects or just how I operate in life in general?
How you operate in life, your belief system, where did it come from?
I would say it was an amalgamation of basically the culture in which I grew up in, as well as my family. My mother had a huge influence. My mother and father had a huge, mostly my mother, huge influence of shaping how I thought. And I would say, I've been on a journey for the last couple of years for just myself personally, deep diving and kind of going and why do I think this way and why was it okay for me to operate in this manner? What was this programming that took place? And not saying that it had a good or bad or, because parents were doing the best they could, right? But it's like, why do I still carry this? Does it really have any value for me as I move forward in my continued life, right?
First of all, they were exactly the person you needed to
Yep.
become the person you are today. So I have totally forgiven my parents for anything they might have done that was not, in my mind, exactly what I wanted them to do, because what I wanted them to do is irrelevant. But the real question I have for people is, why do we believe that our belief system, which in my mind is made up of our experiences that we have in the world, all the senses, and our interpretation of what's unfolded in front of us? Not even what's unfolded, not even the truth of what happened, because we have no idea what the other person's thinking when we're talking to them. We can only assume. And I would tell you that most time the other person doesn't know what they're thinking. So to try and imagine what they're thinking is close to impossible because they have no freaking clue because they're just reacting themselves. So if our belief system is made up of our interpretation of what happened, and we're one of 8 billion creatures, and there's 8 billion different experiences going on in this moment, and we're letting the interpretations that run our life run our life.
Hmm.
Why? Why are we so attached to that thing we call a belief system when in many ways it doesn't serve us? I've been playing with AI for a while, and I asked probably 5 months ago, I said, what percentage of human thought is negative and what percent is positive? It says over 50% of all thoughts of humans is negative and only 10% is positive. And that's 40% that's neutral. So if 50% of all of our thoughts are negative, the question is why? And we're very self-critical creatures. And if it's not true, if it's just based on observation and interpretation of what's unfolded in front of us, why does it have so much power? But it does. That is the human condition. And that is the opportunity. You asked the question at the beginning, my life has been beautiful if I only would have experienced it that way. My life as a child was not fun for me. It did not align with what I wanted it to do in order for me to feel whole. But compared to what I've seen since being an adult, the last story in my book, The Joy Molecule, is a collection of 8 stories of people that I've met since 2012, since I got back from Africa, and the lessons they've taught me. And the first lesson is circumstances not define my joy. And that's 2 stories, the first story and the last story. 2 Ugandan men that I met, one that I met in 2012 and one that I met in 2024. And they're both amazing young men. And the one that I met in 2024 grew up in the streets of Kampala, in the slums. Mom left to go get a job when he was 9, and he ended up joining a gang because it was the only way he could survive. And within the first 6 months of him joining the gang, 4 of his best friends died. And he's sitting there every day from the age of 9 to 13, wondering when he was going to die, afraid every moment of every day. And then when he was 2 weeks before his 13th birthday, he's born on Christmas Day, he was with his gang leader, and his gang leader got stoned to death. And everybody that was around him said, get out of here, run. So him and his best friend and one other kid go run, and they hide behind a church. And this woman taps him on the shoulder. She's from Northern Ireland. And she says, young man, we're opening up a boys program at the church. If you accept Jesus Christ as your savior, we'll help you in your life, and if we could do one thing for you, if we can get you one thing that would keep you off the streets for the rest of your life, what would that be? And this young man's name is Manuel Trinity. He goes by Trinity. And Trinity said, if you get me a computer, I'll stay off the streets for life. And his buddy said, if you get me a musical instrument, I'll stay off the streets for life. So his buddy is now the #1 recording artist in all of Uganda. He got a guitar. And Trinity got a computer because all he wanted to do was play video games and escape all the shit that he'd seen over the first 13 years of his life. So by the time he was 15, after playing with the computer for a couple of years, he started to realize what the computer could do. Now, Trinity's 32 now. And by the time he was 19, Trinity got a job as a computer designer for Coca-Cola. And that got him out of the slums. So he got an apartment in the city, got his mom and his brother out. And after 9 months of working for Coca-Cola, he quit. And everybody's like, what are you quitting for? You're getting rid of the golden goose. He says, I'm not here to work for Coca-Cola. There's all these brilliant kids in the slums, and they need access to the same thing I got access to. So in 2018, Trinity started something called Yearby 92. It was a few months after he met this young woman, and Megan is oldest of 6 kids. Her dad had fallen and broken his back, and she was told she needs to take care of the family. And at 16 years old, she needed to go prostitute herself to make money because that was the best way for her to make money. So she told Trinity, I'm going to go sell my body on the street tonight to provide for my family. He says, no, you're not. He says, you're too smart. I'm going to teach you everything I know about computers. And she and her good friend started taking classes from Trinity. And that was in 2017. 2018, they launched a company. And since 2018, they have trained 5,000 street kids. They have 6 containers in 6 different slums around Uganda and Kenya. And they hire the best and the brightest. So 160 of those graduates now work for Yearby 92. They are making video production. They do website development. They have a company that does safaris. They have a car wash. They help people raise money to buy their own computers so they can do their own businesses. He's an amazing young man. And whenever anybody in the United States tell me, oh, my life was hard, I'm like, F you. Compared to what I've seen in my life, your life was not hard.
Yes.
So between Trinity and Armstrong, the young man I met in 2012, who the whole story is outlined in the book, he now lives here in the United States. I've invested a lot of time and money and resources into Armstrong's life. And they're 2 young men that are like my sons. But their lesson to me is that my circumstance does not define my joy. If they can be joyful with what backgrounds they had, then I can find joy no matter what, no matter what's going on in my life. So we are a very, very, very challenged culture in the United States. And the fact that you're living overseas now, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of people a lot happier than most Americans. And they have a lot less than most Americans will ever have. And it's like, why is this happening? And I believe the reason that it happens, the core belief system that I go live by, is that they have shared purpose. The title of the book, The Joy Molecule, came from the Success Redefined book. I was working with a writer. Her name is Susan Saba. And Susan was working with me. And in the last section of the book, I wrote the line, conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. So if you look at the title, purpose is the blue swatch, connection is the yellow swatch, and the overlapping diamond is joy. So blue and yellow make green. So in the book, she says to me, one of our conversations says, oh, conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. That's C2P. I'm like, and? She says, well, if H2O is the water molecule, then C2P must be the joy molecule. And I'm like, that's pretty brilliant. So when I started writing this book a decade later, I started playing with the joy molecule, and I started to think about what it is that brings people joy. And I came to the conclusion that all the people that I know that walk this planet with joy know exactly what they are, they know who they are, and they know why they are. And when you know those 3 things, nobody can tell you anything other than who you are. And you're not swayed by the next comment or the other person who gets angry at you or thinks something of you. You are just you. And you wake up every morning knowing that you're going to do the best you can every day to improve the lives of others. And you just get to be. And that's where peace lives. No matter what's happening outside of us, as long as we don't attach to the outcome of what's happening, then we can find peace in every moment. Because I've learned in my lifetime I've been here 62 and a half years. And if I look at the world through my lens, there are so many things that happened in my life that I thought were horrible, yet they informed me in a way that I never could have been informed otherwise.
Right.
So there's no good or bad. There's just days with more energy than others. There's days that are more memorable than others. But I've stopped labeling things as good and bad. They just are. And I used to say things are happening for me, not to me. And the truth is, neither one. They're just happening. Now, it's a better mindset. The positive mindset is happening for me versus to me, I think is a more positive way of living on this planet. But the truth is, neither one is true for me. They're just happening. They're just unfolding.
You know, there's a book that I haven't finished reading. It's called Ego is the Enemy.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it
listening to it
talks
right
about,
now.
oh, yeah, oh, okay, okay. And, it has some pretty radical and wild concepts of basically how it talks about how our ego consistently manifests itself in a lot of different ways, innocuous ways that it's not, that it doesn't seem harmful, but it is, right? And you kinda compared, the joy killer. What do you see is that comparison, that's hiding in us as people when it comes to our ego, or is it self-hatred or whatever that might be that is going on that is, like, destroying that for us?
I don't know. I just know that as Americans, we are trained by Madison Avenue to want more, to want a prettier spouse, to want a nicer car, a bigger house. Whoever created Madison Avenue was brilliant because they've convinced an entire nation that getting more will make you happier.
Yeah,
And getting
yeah.
more just makes really wealthy people wealthier because the stock market goes up and they benefit. And they actually even benefit when the stock market goes down because many times they know in advance when it's going down. So they play the market. So at this moment in time, I think we are programmed to believe that we need more. And I promise you, there'll always be better somebody with more money, nicer house, nicer car, better looking, hotter spouse, whatever you want to look at to compare yourself to, you can find it. And if that's the truth, then stop looking because there's no reason. The last story in the book before Trinities is Irving Levin. And Irving was super amazing human being, sold a business 20 years ago for $500 million and became a philanthropist. And he ended up focusing on first generation scholars, kids that are first in their family to ever go to college. And last year, he graduated his 1,000th scholarship student. He gives them $5,000 a year every year for 4 years. He now has 1,000 students under scholarship active right now. That's 250 students every year, both Portland State and one of the universities in Chicago. I would say probably 75 to 80% of his students are in Seattle and the balance are in Chicago. And his joy comes from the relationships he has with these young people and the
Mm,
difference he makes in their life. He's got a staff of 3.5 people that run the business of it. And he gets the joy of getting to know these people and mentoring them on their lives. So to me, that's where the joy comes from. It's of being of service. I've said it before. I just gave a talk earlier today and I shared with the group. To me, being of service is the most selfish thing we can do. I'm like, no, that's
mm,
selfless. I'm like, no, it's selfish. It feels really good to do it. So if it feels really good to do it, that's pretty selfish. We do it because it feels good. It's like sex. It feels good.
yeah,
You want to do it. You want to do
yeah.
more of it. So why not give more? We don't give more because society doesn't honor that. Society doesn't say that that's valuable. The only reason a lot of people give more is because there's a tax advantage to it. That's really sad because the truth is, it's one of the most enjoyable things we can do is to give and to be of service to others.
Well, you're definitely not wrong about that. If someone met you for the first time, and asked, "So what do you do?" How would you want them to ask that differently?
I hate that question.
Right?
I traveled internationally for 6 months in
Yeah,
2015 with my kids and my ex-wife, and nobody asked me what I did for 6 months.
yeah.
And then I came back to San Diego and everybody's like, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
And I'm like, okay, I'm a dad At the time, I'm a husband. I'm an athlete. I play beach volleyball. I cycle, play pickleball, and I'm an entrepreneur. Like, well, that's pretty broad. How do you make a living? I'm like, why do you care? Why is that so important to you? Wouldn't you rather know why I do what I do? Or wouldn't you rather know whether I'm a good human or not? Or
Yeah.
whether someone you actually want to have a conversation with versus you're a lawyer? That's cool. You must be, or you're a lawyer? I hate lawyers. Or you're an accountant? That's boring. Or you do digital marketing? That's cool. Or I'm an AI. AI. What is it? So
Yeah.
who cares what I do? So when people ask me what I do, I have two choices. I've been as obnoxious to say, can you ask me a better question? Pretty obnoxious. I know I'm doing it, but I'm doing it for a
Or
reason. I'm doing it as an educational opportunity with the person I'm with to say, you know what? We're so focused on what in our culture and what we do that I'd rather help you get to know who I am and why I
Mhm.
exist. So if somebody's asking me what I do, I actually created a deck of cards that I started marketing it called Spark Cards and conversations that count. So I was talking to a friend of mine who's a keynote speaker, and I said, you know, I'm going to start doing a lot of speeches, and I want to give away a card with 50 questions on it that have nothing to do with what you do. It's all about who you are and why you exist. He's like, why do one card with 50 questions when you can do a deck of cards? And then you put one card under each person's seat. And at one point in this talk, you ask them to reach under their seat and take the card out and share the question with the person next to them. I thought that was brilliant. So that's what I did. So there's 4 different suits. Each suit has a different theme. The deuce is the least vulnerable question. The ace is the most vulnerable question. And the 2 jokers are kind of over the top.
Yeah.
So it's a way for people to get to know others. I've used them at parties. I've used them at dinners.
Uh-huh.
And I had couples like crying, like answering deep, meaningful questions and their partner looking at them saying, that's what I love about you. I mean, you don't get that at a typical dinner. And I had a one dinner where I had a friend come. So that was the best dinner I ever had. And the food didn't matter. It was the conversation. And I said, that's my conversation every day. I'm sorry that you don't get that, but what I take for granted, most people don't get every day. And the
Mhm.
reason is because I ask the questions and I'm interested. I don't want to talk about, I love sports. And as soon as we're done, I'm going to go home and watch the NCAA and I'll go watch some ball games and I'll have some fun with my girlfriend. But at the end of the day, I don't need
Mhm.
to know about sports. I want to get to know about people and who are you and why do you do what you do? So that's where I try and take that question as subtly as I can without being a jerk. Sometimes I'm sometimes I am 100% obnoxious and sometimes I'm kind.
Yeah. And I know you don't I know to me, it doesn't sound like it's coming from a bad place. It comes from a place that's like, like of because a lot of times we are programmed to ask those questions like as if you have to impress us or your
Yeah.
status or has to be
Yeah,
somewhat aligned with what I guess I can utilize you for, you know.
exactly. And I live in San Diego, so you're gonna wanna come visit me, right? And I
Yeah.
drive a really nice car, and you're gonna wanna be a passenger. Who cares? I mean, I like driving a nice car. My son loves cars. I mean, he's 24 years old, and if he could have one of everything, he would. But he can only own one at a time, and he's going through them. I think he's had 10 cars by 24 already. So we're all different, man. We all value different things. At the end of the day, I value connection. My mission in life is to help people connect to themselves, help them connect to others, and help them connect to the resources they need to help them leave this planet better than we found it. That's my mission. So I'm all about connection. And connection doesn't happen by talking about what you do, because on the back of the book is this molecule. There's actually a joy molecule, and in the middle is the joy atom, and the 3 atoms around it are the what, the who, and the why. And if you look at the molecule, the what is the smallest of the atoms, the who is the next largest, the why is the next largest, and the joy molecule is the biggest. Because a what connection is rather weak, it's very surface level. A
Mhm.
who connection is deeper. That's your values and what your priorities are in life. And when you connect around that, that's cool. The why connection is much better because that's about why you exist on this planet. But when you know all 3 and you find people that also know all 3 and you have shared why, man, that is magic. And that's joy. Being connected first to self and then to others.
We'll say if we talk about what, who, and why, and then, we cap it off with joy. If someone's reading your book, what's the typical time for someone to go through those steps? If we talk about what, who, and why as steps to get to joy. Because like you said, the what is kind of like surface level. Who is like, you're getting there, and then why? For me, because and the reason I asked this question, because for me, when I started asking these questions about myself to myself, it was very, very difficult. And maybe because I had this inflated ego or perspective about myself that I thought was really, this, and asking myself these questions, really taking it seriously, kind of like not, it wasn't a depression, but it made me realize that I wasn't what I thought I was, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's a time frame for it. I think it's taken me 62 and a half years to figure out what, who, and why. And when I got conscious to my highest self, it took me 6 to 10 months to integrate that into my life, to make it a knowing versus an understanding.
Mm,
So you can figure out what, who, and why pretty quickly, but actually living it, that all depends upon the person. I do coaching work and I go through 3 steps with people. First is awareness of you're probably not what you think you are. And how do we get you to break down your belief system to understand that you're not, you are, versus my name is, and I am. I had somebody give me their card and they say, this is me. I'm like, no, that's a paper representation of the role you play in work, in business. That's about
yep.
it. That's not you. So who are you? And it's a deep question. And if you really think about it, when I wrote What, Who, and Why, I have a friend of mine who I work with a lot. And he's like, Larry, the real question, the only question that matters is what are you? Because when I think about what, I'm talking about career and job. When he's talking about what, he's talking about, are you a spiritual being having human experience with access to thought and feeling? And if you know that, then the who and the why come from that. But if you're just coming from mind and you're trying to figure those things out, then it's all thought. Alan Watts is probably the best at talking about that. You can't solve thought from thought. The only way to get past thought is to be past thought, is to
Mm,
come from a place of knowing that you have thought. Meditation can get you there. Yoga can get you there. The woman I'm dating, she did a lot of yoga and she has a great sense of self. And she grew up in a situation where she was loved and she was lived in a house of joy. I did not grow up with a lot of joy. It's funny, I've listened to a lot of podcasts since I've been playing around on Podmatch and being a guest on all these shows. And I heard this one guy talking about happiness. And the host said, so have you been happy your whole life? And he says, yeah, grew up happy, all this. I'm like, how can you write a book about happiness when you've never been sad?
mm,
It's like you're coming from a perspective of only being happy.
yeah.
And I wouldn't read that book. That book about being happy from a happy person, they can't deconstruct happiness if they don't know what sadness is. And there is no happiness without sadness. And there is no good without bad. There is no evil without. I mean, we live in this world where we think we're better than, like you said before, you were disappointed in yourself. There's nothing to be disappointed in. I'll give you a total reframe for your life. So I'm working on 3 more books. Well, there'll be 4 more books after this one. So the next book's going to be written with one of the characters in the book. His name is Joe Delagrave. He's the coach of the wheelchair rugby team for the U.S. He'll be the coach of the team in the 2028 Olympics in LA, Paralympics. And he broke his neck at 19, 6'6", 260, tight end football player. And between freshman and sophomore year, he was in a boating accident, snapped his neck. Went from active athlete to quadriplegic in a matter of a second. And he also got cut from the U.S. Paralympic team in 2016 when the year before he was player of the year globally and co-captain of the team because the guy who was coach of the team didn't like him. So he got his identity ripped from him a second time. So that whole section of the book is 3 different challenged athletes. And Joe's story we're calling the identity illusion. So my first lesson was circumstances not define my joy. Second lesson is this woman, Carrie Rich, who was handed $2 million at 26 to go change the world. That lesson for me is my work needs to matter. The third lesson is this idea of identity. Identity and ego kill my joy. And that's going to be the next book called The Identity Illusion. And that'll probably be out later this year. I wrote the forward, and it's Joe's complete story, not just the 6-page that I wrote about him. The next lesson and the next story is Judith Briles, my publisher. It's all about perseverance, persistence, and patience. We all need to keep moving forward. And the last lesson I talked about, Irving Levin, is called the Enough Academy. When we have enough, what is our responsibility back to others? So those are my 5 lessons. But the framework that I'm using around this, that I'm helping other people with, is Abraham Maslow died close to, 80 years ago.
Mhm.
But he studied human behavior, very surface level in many ways, but somebody created Maslow's hierarchy of needs from his content. And everybody believes that Maslow created that, but Maslow never created a hierarchy of needs. And Maslow didn't end at self-actualization, which is where the hierarchy ends. He started looking at self-transcendence. So if you look at his, I'll call it a continuum, let's call it a ladder, that's what I'm calling it, this new book, is at the bottom of the ladder is survival, food, water, shelter, and safety. Those are the lower 2 in his hierarchy of needs. The next level is love and belonging, and then self-esteem, and then self-actualization. If we look at self-transcendence, that's the last one. So if you look at this continuum, at the bottom of this ladder is abject poverty and no survival, being eaten by an animal. And the top of his ladder is transcendence, which is oneness with God. And we all live somewhere on this ladder. We all live between total ready to die from survival issues to oneness with God. And our project on this planet, in my opinion, this book will be written as a fable of a father telling a story to his daughter, answering the question, why are we here? And I think we're here to wake up, to figure out where we are on this continuum, this ladder, to know that no rung is better than any other. And when we figure out where we are in this ladder, we're here to reach down to the people below us and help them up the ladder, and to reach up to the people above us and say, what do you see that I don't see? So if I can just be humble enough to say, I was blessed. I mean, I'm looking at you. One of my best friends is a man of color. And he says, Larry, you have no idea what it's like to be a man of color. You walk down the street and people look at you differently than they look at me. And that's true. And he says, you come from privilege. I'm like, yes, I do. And my daughter tells me all the time. But I can't do anything about the fact that I was born a white male in 1963 in New York. And I've had every opportunity in my life to have the beautiful life that I have. I was not put on this planet to be in abject poverty. For whatever reason, I don't ask. I don't worry about it. My opportunity is to wake up and to help those that are asking for help to move up this ladder. That's my opportunity. That's why I coach. My brother asked me why I write books. And I write books to turn a rung on the ladder into a platform, so that if I keep climbing and I fall, at least I can fall onto a platform versus grasping for a rung. And that's my reason. I don't write them for anybody else. If I sell 1,000 books or I sell 1,000,000 books, I don't care. I'm not here to sell thousands of books. I'm here to express my belief system and know that that belief system is just that, is just a belief system, and it's not true and it doesn't matter. But if it helps me find peace, and I can help other people find peace, which is why I think we're here to figure out where we are on the ladder and find peace with our situation in life. And that's it. All this accumulation, all the chasing. Now I need an identity and ego to pay my bills, to collect income, to know my value in society, all that other stuff. And none of it matters.
That is wow. For a person who's listening and they won the game of life and lost their joy, what is one small thing you think, because what you're sharing is revolutionary to me. And especially as I go down this road and I grow. But what is one small thing that you can say or give them in the next 24 hours that they can move towards alignment with?
So step one is to be aware of, just awareness is the first step. So awareness, alignment, and then aligned action. That's my process that I help people through. But if they can do one thing in the next few hours to change their life, give themselves to others, be of service, go find a way to work at a soup kitchen, go find a homeless person and help them, go find a kid in need. Do something to stop focusing on yourself. Just be of service, because the only moment that exists is right now. The future is not given. The past already happened, and we've created stories from it that are not true. They're just our stories. And we can change our story whenever we want to. And the best way to find peace in my world is to be of service to others. That's why I do these podcasts. I mean, I'm sharing a message I think is critically important. I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else. And in many ways, I have tons of flaws. And I'm at peace with them because I know that there was no conscious bone in my body that has ever wanted to hurt anyone. There's not a malicious bone in my body. So if somebody got hurt by something I said, somebody got offended by some way that I came across, I'm sorry. And I have no idea how to be aware of everybody's wounds so I don't rub them. Because the truth is, I have no power over anyone else. All I can do is do what I do, and they will react. And the challenge is that they react versus act. They don't take the information in and decide what to do with it. They just react. That is inner child stuff. That is your basic self showing up and reacting. Acting is a conscious thought process. I'm going to take this information in, decide what to do with it. Knowing is trusting your being and being present to what is. And when I do my coaching, I don't prep. I just show up. I be present, and I trust that some higher self is going to guide the conversation exactly where it needs to go.
And my final question for you is, what did I not ask that I should have asked? Or what do you wish more people understood about you and your work?
What did you ask? I think you asked some great questions. I think you were very present. You were here. You were in the conversation. I greatly appreciate that. So I don't think there's anything you didn't ask. What would I want people to think about? Where do I want them to go? I would want them to realize that we have an opportunity as fellow humans on this planet to be kind and generous to each other, and that nothing is promised, nothing is earned alone. I've worked with entrepreneurs for 33 years, and the ones that turn my stomach are the ones that said, I did this and I earned it, and it was all on my back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think your parents had something to do with it. The school you went to might have had something to do with it. Pulled up by your bootstraps. I get it. And there's some people that have been through a lot of crap to get where they are, but nobody does this alone. First of all, we're all one. We're all one being separated into 8 billion creatures experiencing what's going on here. I believe that. And if that's true, why are we not kinder to each other? And a lot of it is, to me, programming. I hate this person because of the color of their skin. I mean, look at the Palestinians and Israelis. They all look the same, but they hate each other
Yep.
only because of the religion or location they were born into. I understand the defensiveness on both sides, but it saddens me that as humans, we take those positions. So what do I wish for? I wish for more peace, more love. I think we are all love at our core, and we all live in abundance. And there's a lot of people that have transitioned more to scarcity than abundance. We live in a scarcity society, and I lived in it for a long time. My dad went broke when I was 10. I learned scarcity really well as a kid. My brothers told me 5 years ago, he says, just got to make peace with it. And I've realized, no, my soul knows abundance. My mind is what was trained on scarcity, and I can retrain my mind. My
Yeah.
mind is not the boss. My mind is the passenger. So
So, Larry, where can they find the Joy Molecule? Where can they find more about who you are and what you're offering? The floor is yours.
5-dots.com, the number 5-dots, DOTS, .com is the website. Larry at LarryKesslin.com. You can email me, and the book is available on Amazon in paperback, in Kindle, and in Audible. So we'd love to get people's feedback. I wrote it as a labor of love. The people in the story are amazing humans, and I love telling their stories. That's one of my gifts.
Okay. Larry, thank you for bringing both honesty and clarity, especially your message today, especially the difficulties of some people understanding what success is and the significance of that when it comes to understanding how it aligns to your joy. And for all the listeners out there, if this conversation hits home, I want you to sit with those 3 questions: what you are, who you are, and why you're here, and take one small step to the truth that was expressed today. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Michael. Thank you for all the work you're doing and the person that you're becoming.
Thank you, sir.
Peace out.
Peace.